The scream echoed through the marble corridors before anyone saw the blood. A celebrated executive chef collapsed onto the polished floor of the Belladonna Grand Hotel, clutching his face as crimson streamed between trembling fingers. His nose had been shattered with a single punch. Around him, waiters froze, crystal glasses crashed onto imported Italian tiles, and terrified guests backed away from the private dining room where the city's most feared man stood in perfect silence. Matteo De Luca never raised his voice. He never needed to. When he broke someone's bones, it was because words had already failed. The risotto was cold, he said calmly, adjusting the cuff of his charcoal suit. And you lied. Nobody dared breathe. The chef whimpered as security dragged him away. Every employee understood the same terrifying truth. Someone had to finish preparing dinner, or no one would leave the building alive. Across town, Amelia Hart wiped flour from her round cheeks and smiled as she slid fresh bread from a small neighborhood oven. Her family-owned cafe barely earned enough to pay the rent, yet every customer left with a full stomach and the comforting feeling of home. At 29, Amelia had learned to ignore whispered comments about her body. Too curvy. Too soft. Too ordinary. People saw her size before they noticed the precision of her knife work, the science behind her recipes, or the quiet confidence that had earned respect from everyone who truly knew food. Cooking wasn't simply her profession. It was how she cared for people. Her phone rang. Her cousin Luca, a banquet supplier, sounded terrified. "Millie, I need a miracle." "What happened?" "The Belladonna Grand Hotel lost its executive chef. They need someone immediately." "I don't do luxury hotels." "You don't understand. They're offering enough money to save your cafe." She hesitated. The cafe was 3 months behind on rent. Her employees depended on her. Her father had spent 30 years building the place before illness forced him to retire. One night's work could change everything. "I'll do it." Luca didn't answer immediately. His silence carried something heavier than relief. "Just, don't ask who booked the dining room." An hour later, Amelia stepped from an aging hatchback into a world that didn't seem real. Black armored SUVs lined the entrance. Men in tailored black suits stood motionless beside the doors. None smiled. None looked away. Every instinct told her to return home. Instead, she tightened the strings of her apron and walked inside. The hotel's kitchen resembled a battlefield. Broken plates. Shouting managers. Burning sauces. Dozens of frightened cooks who looked as though they expected execution instead of criticism. A trembling sous chef rushed toward her. "Are you Amelia?" "Yes." "You have 45 minutes." "For what?" "Dinner." She blinked. "For how many?" 12. Relief briefly crossed her face. Then he whispered the next sentence. 12 of the most dangerous people in Europe. The private dining room overlooked the glittering skyline through floor-to-ceiling glass. At its center sat Matteo De Luca. His expression remained unreadable as advisors discussed shipping routes, financial markets, and territories in low voices. No one laughed. No one interrupted him. Power settled around him like an invisible crown. Then the first course arrived. Matteo tasted exactly one bite. The room became painfully still. Every heartbeat inside the kitchen seemed to stop. He placed the fork down. "Bring me the chef." Amelia entered carrying neither excuses nor fear. Only another perfectly plated dish. She met Matteo's icy gaze without lowering her own. "You wanted the chef." "I wanted an explanation." "You deserve dinner first." A few men exchanged astonished looks. Nobody spoke to Matteo that way. His eyes narrowed. "You know who I am?" "I know hungry people make bad decisions." One corner of his mouth almost moved. "Almost. You think food can solve everything?" "No." She calmly replaced the original plate with the fresh one. "But good food reminds people they still have choices." The room fell silent. Matteo lifted another forkful. This time he chewed slowly. Every advisor watched him instead of the meal. Finally he swallowed. "Better." The kitchen staff outside nearly collapsed with relief. Amelia turned to leave. His voice stopped her. "Stay." She looked back. "My work is finished." "No." His dark eyes studied her with unsettling intensity, as though evaluating far more than her cooking. "It's only beginning." Before Amelia could answer, the dining room doors burst open. A bloodied guard stumbled inside, gasping for breath. "They're here." Gunfire exploded somewhere below. The lights flickered. And every security officer reached for a weapon while Matteo stood, his gaze never leaving Amelia. "Nobody leaves," he ordered. "Especially her." The echo of gunfire faded almost as quickly as it had begun. Within minutes, Matteo De Luca's elite security team confirmed that the attackers had never breached the upper floors. They had tested the perimeter, leaving behind 2 wounded guards and 1 dead intruder before disappearing into the darkness. Inside the Belladonna Grand Hotel, however, nobody relaxed. Matteo calmly resumed his seat, finishing dinner as if bullets were merely an inconvenience. His composure unsettled Amelia far more than the attack itself. When the meeting ended, she quietly gathered empty plates. "You should go home," Matteo said. "I can't." He looked up. "My cafe needs the money." For a moment he studied her expression. There was no self-pity, only determination. "You stayed while everyone else panicked." "My customers panic during kitchen fires," she replied with a faint smile. "Someone still has to serve dinner." A flicker of amusement crossed his usually unreadable face. "You'll cook breakfast tomorrow?" "I thought tonight was a one-time job." "So did I." Morning revealed another world entirely. Matteo's headquarters occupied the highest levels of the hotel, transformed into a fortress of polished marble, armored glass, encrypted servers and disciplined security teams. Every employee moved with military precision. Amelia expected luxury. She hadn't expected fear. Even experienced staff lowered their voices whenever Matteo entered a room. She refused to. Instead, she concentrated on what she knew best. Fresh ingredients, perfect timing, balanced flavors. Within 3 days, the atmosphere inside the executive kitchen had changed completely. The cooks who had once worked with trembling hands now laughed quietly while preparing breakfast service. Amelia remembered every employee's name, corrected mistakes without humiliation, and stayed late to help clean after everyone else had gone home. She believed respect was earned through example. The staff began believing it too. Matteo noticed everything. He noticed how she thanked the dishwasher before leaving. How she refused special treatment despite cooking exclusively for him. How she quietly packed untouched food for the night security guards instead of throwing it away. One evening he found her arranging meals into simple containers. "Those aren't on the menu. They're for the men outside. They're paid well. They're still human." Matteo watched through the kitchen window as exhausted guards accepted the food with surprised smiles. Nobody had done that before. He said nothing. But the following morning, every guard received proper meal breaks for the first time. No announcement. No explanation. Only a quiet order signed by Matteo himself. Not everyone welcomed Amelia. Bianca Moretti, the hotel's glamorous operations director, considered her an embarrassment. During a planning meeting for an exclusive charity gala, Bianca looked Amelia up and down before speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I didn't realize our executive chef came dressed for a neighborhood bakery." Several executives laughed politely. Amelia simply opened her notebook. "The dessert schedule has 3 timing conflicts," she said. Bianca frowned. "What?" "The chocolate soufflé requires 14 minutes. Your entertainment program allows 8. Silence. Amelia continued calmly. "The seafood course arrives after the wine pairing instead of before it. That will ruin the tasting sequence." One by one, she pointed out logistical mistakes that would have embarrassed the hotel before international guests. The room fell silent. Matteo leaned back in his chair. "Correct every issue exactly as Amelia suggested." Bianca's smile disappeared. "Yes, Mr. De Luca." As everyone filed out, Matteo stopped beside Amelia. "You don't seem interested in proving people wrong." "I'd rather solve problems." "That's rarer." Days turned into a comfortable routine. Breakfast meetings. Late-night dinners. Occasional conversations over coffee after everyone else had gone home. They rarely discussed themselves. Instead, they debated recipes, architecture, travel, history, and leadership. Amelia discovered that beneath Matteo's cold reputation lived a man who carried impossible responsibility. Matteo discovered that beneath Amelia's quiet confidence lived extraordinary resilience. One rainy evening he handed her a small velvet box. She hesitated before opening it. Inside rested an antique silver chef's knife, handcrafted decades earlier. "It's beautiful. It belonged to my mother." Amelia looked up in surprise. "I can't accept this." She believed good food protected families. His voice softened almost imperceptibly. "So do you." For the first time, Matteo saw genuine emotion fill Amelia's eyes. "Thank you." Neither noticed the security cameras silently recording the moment. Elsewhere inside the hotel, another pair of eyes watched something entirely different. Victor Rinaldi, Matteo's trusted financial advisor, quietly copied encrypted files onto a hidden drive before locking his office. He smiled to himself. The rival syndicate had doubled its offer. Soon the DeLuca empire would begin collapsing from within. No bullets required. The following afternoon, Amelia searched the underground wine cellar for rare bottles requested for the charity gala. The cellar stretched beneath the hotel like a maze of stone tunnels. She heard voices. Not kitchen staff. Not security. Men arguing in whispers. She instinctively stepped behind a storage rack. Shipment arrives tomorrow night. The warehouse. No. They've changed locations. And DeLuca? He suspects nothing. A metallic click echoed through the tunnel. Someone opened a steel briefcase. Amelia cautiously leaned forward. Inside lay stacks of passports, encrypted phones, and detailed blueprints of the hotel's private security routes. One page bore Mateo's photograph. Another listed arrival times for every senior lieutenant. Her heartbeat thundered. Before she could retreat, her elbow brushed against a hanging copper pan. The sharp clang echoed through the cellar. Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming directly toward her. High above, hidden inside the hotel surveillance room, an unidentified figure zoomed a camera onto Amelia's frightened face. A distorted voice whispered through an encrypted headset. So, she's found it. Danger was no longer approaching. It had found her. The copper pan clattered across the stone floor. Amelia froze. The whispered conversation stopped instantly. Heavy footsteps echoed through the wine cellar, growing louder with every second. She clutched the antique chef's knife Mateo had given her, not as a weapon, but because it was the only thing in her hand. A flashlight beam swept across the shelves. There, someone shouted. She ran. Rows of vintage bottles blurred past as she raced through the underground maze. Behind her, armed men crashed over wooden crates, closing the distance. Amelia remembered the delivery map she had studied only hours earlier. Instead of heading toward the main staircase, she darted through a narrow service corridor that connected directly to the hotel's industrial kitchens. The first gunshot shattered a wine bottle beside her. The second struck a steel rack, sending sparks into the darkness. She burst through the kitchen doors just as Mateo's security detail rushed inside. "They're in the cellar?" she gasped. Mateo did not ask questions. "Seal every exit," he ordered. "Nobody leaves alive." Within seconds, the hotel transformed into a battlefield. Armored guards flooded the corridors while emergency shutters sealed every floor. The rival syndicate had anticipated resistance. Explosions rocked the underground parking garage, plunging parts of the building into darkness. Smoke drifted through ventilation shafts as frightened guests were rushed into protected suites. Then another message arrived. Snipers on the rooftop. Before anyone could react, a deafening crack split the air. Glass exploded behind Mateo. One of his captains collapsed, a bullet tearing through his shoulder. "Ambush," someone yelled. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Mateo pulled Amelia behind a marble pillar as bullets ripped through the executive lounge. "Stay down." "I'm fine. I wasn't asking." Despite the chaos, his hand remained firmly around hers until another explosion shook the room. The attackers adapted quickly. Unable to reach Mateo directly, they targeted the kitchens. Masked gunmen stormed through the service entrance, seizing terrified employees. "Take the chef," their leader shouted. Amelia barely had time to react before two men grabbed her arms. She drove her elbow backward, breaking one attacker's grip, but another forced a pistol against her side. Across the room Mateo saw everything. His expression turned colder than anyone had ever witnessed. "No." The single word carried terrifying authority. He advanced despite the gunfire. His guards tried to stop him. He ignored them. The kidnappers dragged Amelia toward a delivery elevator. Then she noticed something. One attacker had been hit in the neck by flying glass. Bright blood pulsed rapidly through his fingers. Another clutched his abdomen, already weakening. Years before opening her cafe, Amelia had trained in emergency culinary safety and advanced first aid because restaurant accidents could become fatal within minutes. Her instincts took over. She slammed a tray of coarse salt into one attacker's eyes, twisted free and grabbed clean kitchen towels. "Press here," she shouted to a terrified employee, forcing pressure onto the wounded man's neck. "Don't let go." The injured attacker instinctively obeyed. His own survival distracted the kidnappers long enough. Mateo's security team struck. Flashbang grenades erupted. Gunfire echoed. Within moments, the remaining attackers surrendered or fell. Several hotel guards also lay wounded. Amelia dropped beside them without hesitation. Tear the tablecloths. Someone obeyed. Boiling water. Now. Another cook sprinted away. She improvised pressure bandages, stabilized bleeding wounds, and organized frightened staff with remarkable calm. Even Mateo's chief physician, arriving minutes later, paused in surprise. You kept all of them alive. I just bought you time. The doctor looked toward Mateo. Another 5 minutes and we'd have lost 3 men. Mateo's gaze never left Amelia. For the first time in years, fear had reached him. Not fear for himself. Fear of losing her. Hours later, silence returned to the penthouse. Rain washed away the smoke outside while emergency crews finished securing the hotel. Amelia stood on the balcony, exhausted. I should leave, she whispered. Mateo joined her. They came because of me. They came because someone betrayed you. That makes you a target. She laughed softly. I became one the moment I walked through your doors. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Mateo removed a small velvet case from his jacket. Inside rested a platinum bracelet set with a single flawless sapphire. It belonged to my grandmother. Amelia looked at him in disbelief. I can't accept something this valuable. It isn't payment. What is it? A promise. His voice was quieter than she had ever heard. As long as you wear it, every person in my organization will know you're under my protection. She fastened the bracelet herself. It won't make me fearless. I don't need fearless. He stepped closer. I need you alive. Their eyes met. The distance between them disappeared until only a breath remained. For the first time, the ruthless Mafia boss reached out, gently brushing a loose strand of flower-colored hair away from her face. You never have to make yourself smaller, he said softly. Not in this room. Not in my world. You are remarkable exactly as you are. Amelia felt her heartbeat betray every careful wall she had built. Before either of them could move closer, Mateo's encrypted phone vibrated. His expression hardened as he read the message. One sentence. Traitor confirmed. Victor Rinaldi has disappeared, and he has taken the complete security file for Amelia Hart. Victor Rinaldi's disappearance turned the De Luca Empire into a fortress under siege. For 72 relentless hours, armored convoys rolled through the city while encrypted messages flooded Mateo's command center. Every safe house, warehouse, and financial office was searched. Every loyal captain swore the same oath. Find the traitor. Protect Amelia Hart. Yet the woman everyone was trying to protect refused to hide. If I disappear, Amelia told Mateo as they reviewed plans in his penthouse office, your enemies win without firing another bullet. They're hunting you. They're hunting your weakness. Mateo looked at her for a long moment. And you think that isn't the same thing? She smiled sadly. No. Because weakness breaks under pressure. Loyalty doesn't. For the first time in front of his senior counsel, Mateo reached across the conference table and covered her hand with his own. No words. Just a silent declaration. Every man in the room understood. She wasn't merely the chef anymore. She mattered to him. Despite the escalating danger, the annual Belladonna Foundation Charity Gala could not be cancelled. Political leaders, diplomats, global investors, and influential business families had already arrived from around the world. Canceling would signal fear, something Mateo De Luca had never allowed his enemies to see. The ballroom glittered beneath crystal chandeliers imported from Venice. White orchids framed the marble staircase, while an orchestra filled the air with elegant music. Guests stepped from luxury cars wearing designer gowns and tailored tuxedos worth more than most homes. Amelia almost turned around when she saw her reflection. The woman staring back wasn't trying to become someone else. Her emerald evening gown embraced her curves with quiet elegance instead of hiding them. A sapphire bracelet rested against her wrist, while Mateo's grandmother's antique necklace completed the look. You look nervous, Mateo said. I've never belonged somewhere like this. He offered his arm. You don't belong because of the dress. She looked at him. You belong because no one here has your strength. He guided her into the ballroom. Conversation stopped. Some guests stared because they recognized Mateo. Others stared because the city's most feared mafia boss had entered with a plus-size woman who carried herself with calm confidence instead of insecurity. Whispers spread immediately. Bianca Moretti folded her arms. Surely she's only here because she cooks. Before Amelia could answer, the evening's master of ceremonies rushed toward them in panic. The dessert service is collapsing. What happened? Amelia asked. The refrigeration system failed. Hundreds of soufflés are ruined. Several international critics were already complaining. The gala threatened to become a public disaster. Without hesitation, Amelia removed her evening gloves. Open every secondary kitchen. The chefs exchanged uncertain glances. She immediately reorganized the entire service, replacing the ruined menu with elegant plated desserts using ingredients already available throughout the hotel. Teams moved like an orchestra under her direction. Timing charts were rewritten, presentation adjusted, portions recalculated. 40 minutes later, every guest received a flawless dessert. Many believed it had been planned from the beginning. One famous food critic stood to applaud. Soon the entire ballroom followed. Bianca lowered her eyes. She had nothing left to say. Matteo didn't hide his pride. In front of politicians, billionaires, and rival families, he gently placed his hand against Amelia's back. This evening, he announced, belongs to the woman who saved it. No one questioned her place beside him again. Later that night, Matteo brought Amelia to the private Di Luca estate overlooking the sea. Unlike the ruthless empire outside its gates, the mansion felt strangely peaceful. His elderly aunt embraced Amelia warmly. His younger cousins laughed with her over homemade recipes. His grandmother's portrait overlooked the dining room fireplace. "You've brought life back into this house," his aunt whispered. Matteo heard every word. For years his family had eaten in silence. That evening they stayed around the table for hours. Amelia didn't change the mansion. She reminded it how to feel like a home. The peace lasted less than 12 hours. At dawn, Matteo convened an emergency Mafia council after encrypted intelligence confirmed Victor Rinaldi had aligned himself with the Volkov syndicate. Maps covered the conference table. Warehouse locations. Bank accounts. Safe houses. As the meeting intensified, Amelia quietly noticed something everyone else had missed. One logistics map showed delivery schedules crossing through the old harbor district. She frowned. These routes don't transport weapons. Every captain turned toward her. They transport refrigerated cargo. Matteo looked closer. She continued. The timing matches commercial food deliveries. A refrigerated convoy can cross police checkpoints without inspection. Silence filled the room. Victor hadn't stolen financial records. He had hidden assassins inside legitimate supply trucks. It's not an attack on your business, Amelia realized. It's an attack on everyone gathering at tonight's summit. Matteo immediately issued new orders. Roadblocks, drone surveillance, harbor lockdown. The trap had been uncovered. Or so they believed. As armored vehicles escorted delegates toward the business summit, explosions ripped through the lead convoy. Smoke swallowed the highway. Automatic gunfire erupted from abandoned warehouses. The refrigerated trucks were decoys. The real assault came from above. Attack helicopters. Rocket fire. Chaos. Matteo forced Amelia behind an armored vehicle while his soldiers returned fire. Stay with me. Then everything happened at once. A flash grenade exploded nearby. Communication systems failed. Through the smoke, masked operatives seized Amelia before anyone could reach her. She fought fiercely, memorizing faces, accents, vehicle markings, and the direction they were traveling. Even blindfolded, she counted every turn, every bridge, every change in road surface. She knew information could become a weapon. Matteo fired until his rifle ran empty. He chased the escaping convoy on foot despite his guards shouting behind him. It was too late. The vehicles disappeared into the smoke. Only Amelia's sapphire bracelet remained, torn from her wrist and lying in the shattered roadway. Matteo picked it up with trembling hands. For the first time since building his empire, the man every criminal feared fell to his knees. Because power had won him a kingdom. But it had failed to protect the one woman who had taught that kingdom how to have a heart. The sapphire bracelet rested in Matteo De Luca's palm like the last heartbeat of hope. For one endless minute, the battlefield disappeared. The burning vehicles, the smoke, the screams. None of it mattered. Only Amelia. His captains waited for orders, expecting the ruthless boss who had conquered cities through fear. Instead, Matteo closed his fingers around the bracelet and spoke with terrifying calm. We are not fighting for territory. Every soldier looked at him. We are bringing her home. The De Luca Empire moved with breathtaking precision. Private satellites tracked suspicious convoys while drones swept abandoned industrial districts. Armored helicopters lifted into the night, and loyal families from every corner of Matteo's organization answered the call. No one questioned him. They had all seen what Amelia had done for their people. She had remembered birthdays, cooked for exhausted guards, saved wounded soldiers, restored warmth to a family that had forgotten how to smile. She was one of them. Miles away, Amelia sat inside an abandoned cold storage warehouse owned by the Volkov syndicate. Her wrists were restrained, but her mind remained clear. Victor Rinaldi paced confidently. You should have stayed in your little cafe. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. I chose survival. You chose greed. Victor laughed. You still think Matteo can save you? Amelia's eyes wandered around the warehouse. Industrial refrigerators. Commercial gas lines. Emergency sprinkler valves. Backup generators. She remembered every maintenance diagram she had studied while organizing the charity gala. Every building had weaknesses. She only needed one opportunity. When the guards left to prepare for Matteo's arrival, Amelia quietly loosened a metal pin from the chair beneath her. Minutes later, her restraints slipped free. She reached the nearest control panel. With practiced hands, she triggered the emergency refrigeration shutdown, forcing pressure through unused gas lines before activating the fire suppression system. Alarms exploded throughout the warehouse. Sprinklers flooded the corridors. Visibility vanished beneath freezing vapor. The kidnappers shouted in confusion. She hadn't escaped. She had transformed the battlefield. Outside, Matteo's assault teams arrived. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Gunfire thundered through the fog. The final war had begun. Bullets ricocheted across steel containers while helicopters illuminated the docks with brilliant searchlights. Rival soldiers emerged from every direction, but Matteo advanced relentlessly, protecting civilians first and eliminating threats only when necessary. Victor realized too late that Amelia had sabotaged his carefully planned defenses. His electronic locks failed. His surveillance cameras went dark. Escape routes sealed automatically. The warehouse itself had become his prison. Find her. Matteo shouted. I'm here. Amelia's voice echoed through the mist. He ran toward the sound. Two assassins appeared from behind stacked containers. Before they could fire, Amelia slammed a suspended pallet release. Hundreds of frozen food crates crashed between them, scattering the attackers long enough for Matteo's guards to disarm them. Their eyes met across the smoke. Neither moved. Until Victor seized Amelia from behind, pressing a pistol against her shoulder. One more step, he snarled, and she dies. Silence swallowed the warehouse. Matteo lowered his weapon. You want the Empire? Victor smiled. Everything. Take it. His captain stared in disbelief. The businesses. The money. The territories. Matteo slowly placed his pistol on the floor. I'll rebuild all of it. His voice broke for the first time. But I won't rebuild her. Victor hesitated. He had expected rage, not surrender. That single moment of hesitation was enough. Amelia drove her heel backward into Victor's knee. The pistol shifted. Matteo lunged forward while his guards neutralized the remaining gunmen. Victor collapsed beneath the weight of his own betrayal. The rival syndicate surrendered within minutes. Bianca publicly admitted her jealousy and resigned in disgrace. The surviving conspirators were arrested after encrypted evidence recovered from Victor's devices exposed years of corruption. Justice arrived where fear once ruled. Several months later, the Belladonna Grand Hotel reopened beneath brighter skies. Its grand ballroom was filled once again. This time not for a gala. For a wedding. Amelia walked toward Matteo wearing an elegant ivory gown that celebrated every curve she had once been told to hide. She never changed herself. The world finally changed how it saw her. When the officiant asked Matteo why he wished to marry her, he smiled through unmistakable emotion. You taught me that strength can be gentle. He took both of her hands. You reminded me that loyalty is earned, not demanded. His voice softened. You never needed to become smaller to stand beside me. A tear escaped Amelia's eye. You always made room for me exactly as I am. I love you, Matteo said openly before everyone gathered. Not because you saved my empire. He kissed her forehead. But because you saved the man inside it. The applause seemed endless. Years later, the DeLuca Foundation became known across the country for funding culinary schools, trauma recovery centers, and community kitchens. Amelia directed every program herself. Matteo remained respected, but no longer ruled through fear alone. Whenever anyone referred to Amelia as the queen of the DeLuca Empire, she simply smiled. I was never looking for a throne. She glanced toward Matteo. I only wanted a place where kindness could survive. He squeezed her hand. And now it rules beside me. Together they walked toward a future neither power nor violence had ever been able to buy. A future built on trust, courage, and a love that never asked either of them to become less than who they truly were. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments which moment moved you the most, and which Mafia romance you'd love to experience next.